In tonight's Retro Gaming Night, we play the best game ever made and rescue another princess.
This is casually hardcore.
Place the game closing.
Game of
Game news.
and casually hardcore.
Press start.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Retro Gaming Night. My name is Mark, and today we're looking at the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. So we're just going to spend a short while just looking at the intro sequence here while we talk about Zelda, so we don't really want to give too much away in this game. So if you've never played a Zelda game before, Zelda is an action RPG. So this means you have to battle enemies, there are puzzles to solve, but the main core of this game is the dungeons. So you have an overworld to play in where you talk to people and get quests and things like that, and then you go into the dungeons where you have to battle enemies and then you get an item at the end of that dungeon. The dungeons are normally filled with a huge amount of puzzles. They're not normally too difficult, they normally require a little bit of thinking, but think of like the block pushing buttons, lighting certain things kind of puzzles. So Zelda Ocarina of Time has also had the title of the best game ever made, along with Mario 64. And it definitely deserves that title. Even now, 15 years or so later, it is probably one of the best games ever made, and certainly the best Zelda game ever made. So in this game you start as Link. He's the green elf character you can see in the intro sequence here. So the Legend of Zelda, Zelda is the princess, and in this game Princess Zelda, the young Princess Zelda, has been kidnapped by Ganon. Now Ganon is a reoccurring enemy in the Zelda franchise. He is like the big bad guy in the series there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look at the intro sequence of this game, just so you can get a quick introduction to the story as well as I explain it at the same time. So the Deco Tree is a tree in the world here, and basically it is dying, and it sends for a fairy called Navi to go and get the hero of time, who is young Link, who is on a quest for his destiny that he doesn't know exists yet. Navi becomes your partner in this game and is quite known infamously throughout the internet for going, hey, listen, and so on, and just generally being known. But basically Navi is there to hold your hand through the game. Not too much, basically you can wander around and do whatever you want, but she'll hint at where to go and what to do next when you start getting or looking a little bit lost. But basically she's called to go and get the hero of time here, and as Link you must save Hyrule and save the Princess Zelda. Like I say, we don't want to give too much away in this game because it is such a fantastic game. This is Nintendo's answer basically to Final Fantasy VII in a lot of ways when it comes down to story. This was Nintendo showing that they could do complex story-based games filled with emotion. It is a proper 20-hour action RPG adventure. It is something you do not want to have anyone spoil any part of it for you. So any clips that we show you here are of the intro or of key areas in the game that you will see later on without giving away what they even mean, but they can intrigue you. So we tried to use clips here that have been used on the game cartridge itself when it plays in its demo mode, so we don't give anything away ourselves. So in this game, Nintendo introduced a few different things. You can't jump in this game. There is auto jumping, which confused a few fans at first. After the joy of being able to control Mario 64 in full 3D, not being able to jump felt a bit odd, but it actually streamlines the game because you don't have to worry about jumping over gaps, falling down them. The game automatically jumps for you where required. It also introduced Z targeting, so the Z trigger on the N64 controller, you push that and that locks onto your enemy. So you don't have to worry about the enemy disappearing or messing around with cameras. In fact, you don't really have camera control in this game at all. The camera always stays in a fixed position behind Link. When you access Z targeting, it focuses on the enemy, making sure that Link is always facing him and always locked on. And which is a problem most 3D games had when you were fighting enemies, and even now you can play 3D games that don't have Z targeting and you kind of just fumbling around hitting next to them or the opposite direction. But this made that you was always in contact, always focusing on them, and was a true innovation at the time, and most games now use it. Graphically, this game looks amazing. You can play this on the N64, on the Wii Virtual Console, on the GameCube, if you get the special disc that was released as a promotional item. You can also get it on the 3DS as a remake. Now, the 3DS is possibly the version to go for because they updated the visuals. So this is what we're playing here is the N64 version, which looks lovely. The 3DS version, they updated all the textures and the character models and other models, and basically made it look like how you remember it looking at the time. If you come back to this game now, having played it when it first launched, it won't look quite as nice as you remember it looking, but the 3DS version definitely does, and obviously it has that 3D effect as well. Besides that though, the 3DS version and the N64 are very similar. There's very few differences beyond the graphics and the sound. And that's one thing we must talk about, is the sound. The N64 is not known for its sound hardware, basically because it doesn't have any. But Zelda 64 is all really fantastic. There is so much emotion and depth in all the sounds. Every single soundtrack fits the area perfectly. And it's something that you can have on just casually and enjoy. But before this game came out, there was a lot of worry. How do you take The Legend of Zelda and turn it into a 3D game? Hype was riding high from every time a new screenshot came out. The hype was up to here. But Nintendo managed to pull it off. This is probably one of the only games where the hype has been so high, where the game has actually come out and even exceeded the hype, because it is just that amazing. There is not a single problem with this game at all. It has a fantastic story. It is told through the game. There are cutscenes in the game. Most of the dialogue is delivered through text boxes. There is very little in the way of audio work, but it makes the emotion so much better than most games that have terrible voice acting in them. But, you know, visually this game is even more astounding. It creates so much warmth and coldness depending on where you are in the world. There's an area in the game where you visit a graveyard at night where it's raining, and you can feel the coldness and the rain just through the game. Nintendo really worked well on just capturing everything perfectly for this game. This game has a range of different weapons in it. So you have your sword and your shield, which are classic Zelda staples, and they're controlled by different buttons on the gamepad. You can also use the C buttons to add extra items on there. But the main thing is the Ocarina. So the Ocarina of Time basically allows you to make music and to control different things. So you can have the Song of Storms, which you collect later on in the game to make it rain if you want to. You can create daylight or sunset, because the game actually has a time in it. So every few minutes it will be daylight and it will slowly move into nighttime, and things change in the world depending on that. So during daytime everything's happy, at nighttime that's when all the bad guys sort of come out. And there were some mechanics where you needed to be certain times a day to access certain features. Now the main thing about this game is you play young Link. After a while in the game, probably about 5 to 10 hours in, things change and you become adult Link and move into the future where the world has completely changed. So there's a lot of time travel aspects in this. You have to go backwards and forwards to change things and fix things as well. You'll meet all sorts of cool characters along the way. It's a hard game to describe without spoiling any moment of it in detail. One of the best things is the boss battles though. So here we've shown you the very first boss battle, just the intro to it. There's nothing too spoilery there. And hints at other bosses that you might see later on in the game. But they are some of the most fun. They require a lot of thought. Some of them involve a lot of puzzle work in them, or a lot of quick action. Like I say, it's really difficult to describe this game without giving too much away. If you've never played a Zelda before, you will not do any worse than starting with Zelda Ocarina of Time. It is the best 3D game of the Zelda series, and it's probably the best Zelda game ever made. So with that in mind, you should go and get it. Go and spend the next 20 hours playing Zelda 64. Come back, leave a comment on the video, like the video if you enjoyed it, and until next time, stay casually hardcore.
Did you enjoy that video? Then hit that like button. Why not subscribe as well and get the latest videos, news and competitions? Don't forget to check out casuallyhardcore.com, where you can buy hundreds of video game shirts and geek clothing, or make your own shirts with worldwide shipping also available. Until next time, stay casually hardcore.